Hey guys, it's me! My name's Work in Progress, aka Toby, and I'm going to be talking about small things like these. So this is a new film based on the Booker Prize shortlisted novella, novel, whatever you want to call it, by Claire Keegan. The new film stars Cillian Murphy of Oppenheimer and 28 Days Later fame. Why am I qualified to talk on this? Because I have a degree in creative writing and screenwriting. I've got a 2-1 in fact, and that puts me on the same level as Hollywood level screenwriters. So just to provide some context for this, I recently read the book Small Things Like These because I'd heard great things about it, and I heard Jack Edwards talk extensively about it on his channel. He's a big fan of Claire Keegan, a bit of a simp if you'd ask me. So I read it and I loved it. I thought it was a great book. And the book itself was written in 2021. This was Claire Keegan's debut novel. Previously, she'd written a lot of short stories, a couple of collections which had garnered great acclaim, such as Antarctica and Walk the Blue Fields. She was seen as this sort of up-and-coming writer in Irish literature and just generally in the UK. What is Small Things Like These about? Are you sitting comfortably?
Then I'll begin.
It's 1985 in an Irish town. During the weeks leading up to Christmas, Bill Furlong, a coal and timber merchant, faces his busiest season. As he goes round the houses making deliveries, he feels the past rising up to meet him and encounters the complicit silences of a small community controlled by the church. This story very much focuses on the control that religion has over people.
I kick ass for the Lord!
And it's a really fascinating story. The way it is written is just beautiful. And I just love Claire Keegan's prose. She's very spare in what she says. However, every sentence that she writes is necessary and worthwhile and really tells you a lot about the world. You have a story that is just over 100 pages and a lot happens here. Why would you adapt this? Because it's rife for adaptation.
Duh.
It's so filmic in its writing style and it's very atmospheric and very image-driven. Before they even conceptualise the film, you've already seen it because you've read the book. To me, I think the sign of bad prose is when you're reading it and it's not connecting with you in a stream of images. So I guess what I want to start with is the film itself. Personally, I think it was absolutely brilliant, and I was really impressed with how they had adapted this book and how they've made it suitable for the landscape of film. Have they changed the plot at all? Not really. The film still follows Bill Furlong, played by Cillian Murphy, who you will have seen in the film Ants, and his family as he tries to support them through his coal and timber business. One of the issues that you'll see very blatantly from the opening shot, this is a town that is controlled by religion, and this is portrayed excellently through the opening imagery. It's these sort of bird's eye view shots of the town. Every single shot has a part of the church in it, or a church spire looms high overhead. Immediately the filmmakers are telling you, well, this is a town in Ireland, and like any other, the church essentially is above this town. You know, you can say in terms of the height comparisons, the churches are higher and the town is lower, which in filmic terms would mean that the church has more power than the people do. Once we've had these first few opening shots, we then cut to Cillian Murphy, who is delivering coal around the town to help people out during the winter. He is a very quiet man, very introspective, and he likes to think a lot. I am an absolute Cillian Murphy fanboy. I cannot get enough of him on screen. He's just magnetic. His face is so expressive and so striking. You could probably tie hundreds of emotions to it in any one moment.
Glizzy just stuck in their mouth.
Cillian has this very lovely family dynamic. He's a very thoughtful and compassionate father. He is a soft-hearted man, as his wife says to him. However, it's seen as a matter of naivety on his part. He helps people out who others think don't deserve the help because they are bad people or they're struggling with something that is a vice.
I got your head in a fucking vice.
In one scene, for instance, he gives a young lad who is out of his house, he gives him some money to help his father out. However, the father is an alcoholic. In these instances, Bill is sticking his nose in where people don't think he should. So throughout the book and throughout the film, the consistent narrative thread is that the character of Bill never really knew his parents. Bill didn't live with his mother, he lived with Mrs. Wilson, a woman who was very kindly and who did care for him, however wasn't quite the perfect parental situation for him. And his mother worked on with her as a maid in order to see Bill, and he never knew his father.
Have you seen my dad?
Other things that I was interested to see how the film would get to, because the character of Bill was very much in his head a lot at the time, so how do you portray that on film without going straight into inner monologue? Well, in the film, one of the main threads is a sort of culture towards women.
So, you're in the FBI, huh? Me too.
How Bill is afraid of this world because of the way it treats women. And Bill, obviously, has 5 daughters.
You can spill your seed.
His world is surrounded by women, and he is in a very sort of masculine environment at his job. So he has these 2 contrasting lives. To see his girls who are getting older and the inevitable realization that they will have to go out into the world themselves, either into the convent to receive their education, which we will get to, or they have to just be let out into the world of men, essentially. And so the way in which they choose to portray this is that Cillian Murphy's character likes to sit in an armchair in the lounge and just sort of stare out at the world outside. In one scene, he just looks out and he sees a woman being harassed by a man.
You take my picture.
Yeah.
You want my name?
Yeah, sure.
It's humongous.
Okay. Humongous what? Humongous what?
He realizes that this culture is quite toxic in the way that it treats women. It's not something he feels he can stop. There's this sort of dread that lingers throughout the film, and in several scenes you get these sort of pseudo-horror moments that are really quite terrifying in their implications. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The convent, let's get to that. Bill Furlong is delivering his coal and his timber, and he delivers it to the convent in one scene. First major revelation is that very well. Cillian is sort of helpless, he does not know what to do. His wife is rather dismissive of it. She does acknowledge that these girls are suffering in the convent, however she just says it as a matter of our girls aren't going through that, so that's the thing we have to be grateful for. But this plays on Bill's mind a fair lot. In fact, you can say it's all that plays on his mind, really. Apart from his past, this is the only thing that really is in his head. It's his own internal conflict. This is a huge dilemma for him. And essentially for the whole of Ireland. This is such a minute story. However, the implications of it are massive. That's all you really need to know about the film in terms of going into it beforehand. Cillian Murphy, as you would expect, after his brilliant performance in Ants, he just has a magnetic presence that holds your attention. And again, this is no different. This is very much his film. He is on screen, if not in every scene, in the vast majority of them, and his face and his eyes and his sort of physique really transport you. The way in which he delivers dialogue, it's so naturalistic, and yet it perfectly moves the plot forward.
Daddy, did Santi ever bring you anything when you were a little kid?
He did, of course, yeah. One year he brought me a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, hush. Only a jigsaw?
Yeah.
The child performers in this film are excellent. You have these 5 young girls who deliver really great naturalistic performances that, though small, no pun intended,
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
they are good performances and they really bring you into the world. In the same way as Cillian Murphy's wife in the film, Eileen Walsh, she is excellent. She delivers a real contrasting performance to Bill. In Bill's case, he has the weight of the world on his shoulders. He really feels like he must do something. Whereas his wife is very reserved and unwilling to sort of accept the fact that something wrong in the world is something that she must do something about. It is something they must accept. And then I get to Emily Watson. I don't really want to go too much into Emily Watson's performance just because it is a very important role in the film. It's just a great performance, and she really, really eats up every moment of screen time that she is on. Another thing that I want to get to is the cinematography, because essentially, how do you evoke something that is felt through a composition, you know? In the book, the world is sort of closed in on itself because of this convent. Because of the control, it feels quite oppressive. It feels very squeezed into itself, if you know what I mean. The way in which they choose to do this in the film is have a very shallow focus. Everything in the background is essentially blurred, and what you have are just the people. It's solely focused on its subjects. Cillian Murphy is in most every shot of this film. We follow him, and the focus remains on him, and the world itself is blurry and ambiguous. And you guess you could point us to talking about the morality of the world. There are also scenes where the lighting is positively apocalyptic. Ireland is a gorgeous country, but what we have here is a very drab, drained world, and yet in certain scenes the lighting is fiery and orange, so you have these bright, vibrant hues of orange that feel like flames. You have scenes where the orange just sort of bleeds through the windows. It's like essentially like they're living in some form of hellscape. So what makes something viable to be adapted? The length of a project. Let's say I want to adapt a book into a film. So if I pick Infinite Jest, for example, and I think, okay, this is quite a long book. Can I adapt this into a 2-hour film? No, I can't. And if I tried to, even if I made it a 4-hour film, you would lose so much of what this book is about. If you take a book like Small Things Like These, you have a very limited amount to work with, which means you can get this done. Another thing that you want to think about is the subject. Is this about something that is pertinent and that can be discussed at length? So if you're discussing something very abstract and very specific, usually that will be a matter of making that into a short film. If it's something that is more general and can be discussed at great length, that is a feature. Another vital thing is the atmosphere. Is this something that you can feasibly recreate when you are making a film? In a book like Black Narcissus, for instance, the language is very rich, yet it's very simple, and despite that you have these enormous landscapes that are described, and the world in which it is set in is scorching hot and sensual.
Not hot.
It is well hot.
Might be too hot.
It's captured so perfectly in the Powell and Pressburger film that you think, okay, of course it was adapted into this, that's the only way it could be adapted. And then obviously, you know, they made it into a series, but aside from that, small things like these has a very specific atmosphere. It's quite claustrophobic and quite oppressive. And I think that the film does that successfully in through its camera work, in terms of its performances, in terms of its storytelling, in terms of how it uses flashbacks to push the narrative forward in the present. I think it's very impressively handled, and I think the team did a great job.
Nice shot!
Another aspect of adapting a book into a film is how do you set it to music. The world of small things like these is very specific. It's very Irish, obviously. It uses a lot of ambient and sort of atmospherics to evoke that mood and that feeling. To me, evokes a better atmosphere, and it does make the film more engaging. The way in which you're using music in films has to be appropriate for the atmosphere that you are trying to create. It feels like there is a lingering building sense of dread throughout the film. Using music that is tangible and you can say that's this chord, that's that chord, it wouldn't work. By using abstract sounds and ambient noises, you're getting more of the inner self. If you compare that to a film like Oppenheimer, for instance, which also stars Cillian Murphy, or you compare it to a film like Challengers, Oppenheimer uses a very maximalist score to sort of bolster the intimate nature of the film itself, because it's shot in a lot of close-ups, whereas the score is absolutely transcendent and world-defining in its scope. And if you take a film like Challengers, it's such a weird score when you think about it. It's just all techno and club music, and yet it works so perfectly for that film. I cannot imagine the score any other way, it just had to be that. With small things like these, there is not a lot of music throughout the film, but when the score is used, it really heightens emotional moments, which is the perfect way of using it. The ending of the book is brilliant, and I don't want to go into too much into the actual contents of it itself, but it's not a closed-off ending. It leaves a lot of questions still unanswered, but it does wrap up the story of the main character in a really wonderful way. And it's a very moving ending as well. With the film, I was very stressed because when I saw that they were doing the ending, then we went past the moment of the ending in the book, and I thought, oh god. I was so worried that they were going to try and ruin it with some sort of hyper-emotional moment that was just faux sentimental and would really ruin the tone of the film. In all, do I think that this film captures the beauty and the sort of ambiguous nature of the book? Yes, I do. I think it really is a wonderful, wonderful adaptation, and Cillian Murphy is extraordinary in it. The performances across the board are great. It's a beautifully shot film with a great sense of atmosphere and truly is saying something important. My next big analysis will be on Philip Roth's The Breast, and I'll be talking about why I think that will be a fantastic horror film, and maybe talking about potential ways of adapting it, and who knows, we'll see. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Go see small things like these, I think it's brilliant, and you should too. And I'll see you in the next video, so yeah, bye bye.